The fragile peace of the Middle East was shattered 2 weeks ago, marking the beginning of a direct and perilous air war between Israel and Iran. On June 13, 2025, Israel launched a massive aerial campaign, codenamed Operation Rising Lion. The stated objective was clear and uncompromising: to dismantle Iran's nuclear program, which Israeli leaders have long viewed as an existential threat. The initial strikes were meticulously planned and executed with overwhelming force. Israeli warplanes penetrated Iranian airspace, targeting a wide array of high-value sites, including the well-known Natanz nuclear facility and the heavy water reactor at Arak, both central to Iran's atomic ambitions. The campaign was designed not just to damage, but to decisively cripple Iran's path to a nuclear weapon. The scope of Israel's operation extended far beyond just the primary nuclear sites. The attacks also aimed to degrade Iran's broader military infrastructure and its chain of command. Missile production facilities crucial for Iran's conventional deterrence were systematically hit. Military bases across western and central Iran, which housed the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, also came under heavy bombardment. In Tehran, a nondescript 5-story building, believed by intelligence agencies to be a key research hub for nuclear weapons development, was struck, sending a clear message to the Iranian leadership. The precision and breadth of these attacks demonstrated a significant intelligence and operational capability, with Israel claiming it established air superiority over the corridor to Tehran within just 2 days. Iran's response was swift and furious, unleashing its own arsenal in a retaliatory barrage against Israel. The skies over the region became a new battlefield as Iran launched waves of drones and sophisticated ballistic missiles, some of them long-range and ultra-heavy variants designed to overwhelm Israeli defenses. The targets were not just military installations, but also major population centers, bringing the conflict directly to Israeli civilians. The cities of Beersheba and Haifa were among those hit, with air raid sirens becoming a constant, terrifying soundtrack for residents. This counteroffensive signaled Tehran's refusal to absorb the blow without inflicting a painful cost, escalating the standoff into a direct state-on-state war. The damage on the ground in Israel highlighted the indiscriminate nature of modern missile warfare. In Beersheba, a major hospital suffered significant damage, complicating efforts to treat the wounded and striking a facility meant for healing. In the northern port city of Haifa, an historic Ottoman-era mosque was damaged, an act that inflamed religious sensitivities across the region. A building housing a branch of the Interior Ministry was also struck, disrupting government functions. These attacks, while less militarily decisive than Israel's, were aimed at terrorizing the population and demonstrating that no part of Israel was beyond the reach of Iranian missiles, creating a volatile and unpredictable new chapter in this long-running shadow war. This escalating conflict has already exacted a devastating human toll, with casualties mounting rapidly on both sides. In Iran, the numbers are particularly stark. According to international observers and human rights groups, the Israeli strikes have killed over 650 people, with hundreds more wounded. Among the dead are reported to be top-ranking military officials and key nuclear scientists, representing a significant blow to Iran's strategic programs. Tehran has responded by imposing a near-total blackout on internet access, making it incredibly difficult to obtain verified information and leaving many families in the dark. In Israel, confirmed reports from authorities state that at least 24 civilians have been killed by Iranian missile attacks, with hundreds more injured in the chaos. The specter of nuclear catastrophe now looms larger than ever before. The International Atomic Energy Agency has issued a grave warning after its inspectors confirmed radioactive contamination at some of the targeted Iranian nuclear sites. IAEA's Director General Rafael Grossi addressed the United Nations Security Council, emphasizing the extreme danger of military strikes on or near nuclear facilities. He cautioned that such attacks could trigger a severe radiological event, with consequences that would not respect international borders. This warning underscores the unprecedented risk of this conflict, where the line between conventional warfare and a potential nuclear disaster is becoming dangerously thin, adding a terrifying new dimension to the crisis. The IAEA's findings are particularly alarming given what is known about Iran's nuclear stockpile. As of May 2025, the agency reported that Iran possessed enough highly enriched uranium to produce approximately 10 nuclear bombs, with additional material for 2 more. While some of Iran's most critical facilities, like the one at Fordo, are buried deep underground and likely safe from Israeli conventional munitions, the attacks have already demonstrated a high level of risk. An incident near the Bushehr nuclear power plant, where Iranian air defenses were activated, raised fears of a direct hit, though Israel has denied targeting the reactor itself. The potential for a miscalculation or an errant strike remains terrifyingly high. The United Nations has been at the forefront of diplomatic efforts, pleading for an immediate cessation of hostilities. Secretary General Antonio Guterres has repeatedly called for maximum restraint from both sides, condemning the attacks on nuclear facilities as a dangerous escalation. He has warned the international community that the conflict is spiraling out of control and could easily engulf the entire Middle East in a wider, more destructive war. The UN's message is one of urgent de-escalation, stressing that dialogue and diplomacy are the only viable paths forward to prevent a regional catastrophe that would have profound and lasting global consequences. The United States, a key Israeli ally and a major power in the Middle East, finds itself in a pivotal but precarious position. Washington has so far refrained from direct military involvement, but its shadow looms large over the conflict. President Trump is reportedly weighing a decision on whether to intervene directly in support of Israel, with a final call expected within the next 2 weeks, following intensive meetings with his national security team. The outcome of these deliberations could dramatically alter the course of the war, potentially transforming it from a regional confrontation into a global crisis. The world is watching the White House, aware that its next move will carry immense weight for the future of the region. In anticipation of a potential escalation, the United States has significantly bolstered its military presence across the Middle East. The Pentagon has dispatched additional warplanes to reinforce its regional air power and has deployed the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier strike group to the area as a powerful show of force. With nearly 40,000 American troops already stationed at 19 different bases from the Arabian Peninsula to the Levant, the United States has the capacity to intervene swiftly and decisively. This forward deployment serves as both a deterrent to Iran and a reassurance to American allies. But it also makes US forces a potential target, increasing the risk of being drawn into the fighting. Iran, for its part, has issued a stark and unambiguous warning directly to Washington. Iranian leaders have publicly stated that any direct US military intervention on behalf of Israel will be met with an all-out war. Tehran has made it clear that it would consider American bases and assets throughout the region as legitimate targets in such a scenario. This threat is not taken lightly, as it raises the possibility of a direct conflict between the United States and Iran, a scenario that military planners have long feared due to its potential for catastrophic consequences. This high-stakes rhetoric has turned the region into a powder keg, where a single misstep could ignite a much larger conflagration. The diplomatic channels, meanwhile, are fraught with tension. Iran has flatly refused to engage in any negotiations over its nuclear program while it remains under attack. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated that there is no room for negotiations with the US until Israeli aggression stops. This hardline stance complicates international efforts to find a peaceful resolution. The United States is left with a difficult choice: continue to support its ally Israel while risking a wider war, or pressure Israel to de-escalate, potentially straining the alliance and leaving Iran's nuclear ambitions unchecked. The decision made in Washington in the coming days will undoubtedly shape the destiny of the Middle East. The Israel-Iran air war has sent shockwaves across the globe, prompting a flurry of diplomatic activity and revealing deep divisions among world powers. In Europe, foreign ministers are scrambling to salvage the possibility of a diplomatic solution. Led by EU High Representative Josep Borrell, they have convened an emergency meeting in Geneva to explore ways to revive nuclear talks. The European Union's position is a delicate balancing act. It firmly insists that Iran must not be allowed to acquire a nuclear weapon, but it simultaneously cautions against military escalation, fearing that the current conflict will only push Tehran further down a dangerous path and destabilize the entire region. Major global powers like China and Russia have also weighed in, each with its own strategic calculations. Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for an immediate cessation of hostilities, urging the United States to play a constructive role in de-escalating the crisis. Positioning itself as a potential peacemaker, Beijing has emphasized its commitment to diplomacy. In contrast, Russian President Vladimir Putin has condemned Israel's strikes as a violation of the UN Charter and offered Moscow's services as a mediator. While Russia voices concern over regional instability, it also stands to benefit from rising oil prices that a wider conflict would inevitably cause, complicating its role as a neutral arbiter. Reactions from other nations reflect the complex web of alliances and anxieties in the region. Pakistan, a nuclear-armed state, has strongly condemned the Israeli strikes and expressed its solidarity with neighboring Iran. Islamabad's statement highlighted concerns for its own security and the delicate nuclear balance in the broader region, calling for an urgent diplomatic solution to prevent further escalation. These varied international responses show a world that is deeply unsettled by the conflict. While most nations publicly call for peace, their underlying strategic interests often pull them in different directions, making a unified international front difficult to achieve. Ultimately, this conflict carries profound implications that extend far beyond the Middle East. A full-scale war between Israel and Iran, especially one involving the United States, could disrupt global energy supplies, trigger a worldwide economic crisis, and lead to an unprecedented humanitarian disaster. The risk of the conflict spreading to neighboring countries is exceptionally high, threatening to ignite a regional firestorm. For these reasons, the calls for dialogue, restraint, and a return to diplomacy are growing louder each day. The international community stands at a critical juncture, with the hope that a peaceful resolution can be found before the standoff spirals into a global catastrophe.